Hi, I'm Marja from So Local Stitch Lounge. Today I'm going to show you how to make this super practical and beautiful water bottle sling. It even has a place to hook your keys. So this water bottle sling is made to hold a water bottle with room for something slightly bigger, and it's just over 10 inches tall and 8.5 inches around, but you can adjust the pattern as needed. The fabrics we're using for this project are a piece of canvas 4 inches wide for the strap, a piece of linen cotton for the lining, a piece of quilting cotton for the exterior. You have a piece of fusible fleece, as well as your instructions and pattern, some thread, a 1-inch swivel clasp, and you'll also need scissors and pins. So one thing that we're going to be doing a little differently than the instructions is skipping the fusible fleece on the bottom circle. That's optional. You don't have enough for that, so we're going to skip that in this. The first thing we're going to do is cut out the main pieces from the exterior lining and fusible fleece, and you want it to be 12 inches wide by 11 inches tall. You've got a fat quarter for your exterior, you're going to have plenty left over. Next, we'll cut out the circle bottom, one from the exterior and one from the lining. Now we're going to make the strap. So the first thing we're going to do is just give it a quick iron to get out the crease in the middle. And now fold it in half, matching up the raw edges. So we folded it in half lengthwise once to be, so now it's 2 inches wide. We're going to open that up and fold the raw edge towards that center crease. Not all the way, but almost all the way into the center. If you put it all the way to the center, then it doesn't fold as nicely on the last step. And keep working your way all the way down. So now we've got that first middle crease, and now a second crease. And we're gonna do one more crease on this side, folding that in towards the center, all the way down. So now we have both long edges folded towards the middle, and we're going to fold it one more time so that the two folded edges are meeting. And this is a very common way to make a strap. You'll see this in so many different bag patterns and purse patterns. So now it's ready to sew, and it's 1 inch wide, 4 layers. I'm going to start out by bringing my stitch length to 3. And we're sewing the two folds together about 1/8 from the edge, 1/8 of an inch. We're going to do the same thing on the big fold side. So the strap is done. And I'm just going to cut a 3-inch piece off of one end, which is going to be the clip holder. And we'll just set this aside for now. So we're going to take the wrong side of the exterior and fuse the fusible fleece onto the back. So you can tell by feeling the fleece which side has the glue. And so the rougher side is the glue side. Place that on there. And I always like to iron with the fabric side up. They have become one. So now you may choose to do a little bit of quilting on the front. And I'm gonna do some diagonal rows, just working with the design of my fabric, and you can choose whatever you like. So I'm gonna start with the center line and then the other ones. So I've got the 2 circle bottom pieces, and I'm gonna skip the fusible fleece in here. We just sew these together with about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, let's try this baby on for size and figure out how long you want the strap to be. I'm gonna bring it right here. Keep in mind that you're gonna want an extra 1 inch because that's going to be used inside the bag just for some extra security and holding the strap in place. The next thing to do is to measure 3.5 inches from each side on the top edge and just make a mark. And then we're going to place the strap in a U shape with the raw edge extending 1 inch past the top edge here. And that's just to keep the strap secure once it's made into the sling. So the strap is centered over with some of the strap extending. And while we're here, we can add the swivel clasp. I'm just going to put it beside one of them. And then we're going to stitch these in place, about a 1/4 inch from the edge. When you're sewing something that's very thick like this, it's easier to start on top of your strap. Another nice trick is that you can lift your presser foot higher just by pushing up a little more so that you can get on top of it. Now we're going to take the lining piece and place it right side down against the strap. So I'm going to pin these together or clip them together, but when I sew, I want to have my linen fabric on the bottom because it has a bit of stretch to it, and if it's on the bottom, it's less likely to stretch and pucker. We're going to sew across the top edge with a 3/8 seam allowance. I'm going to reinforce where the strap is. So now we're going to open up the lining that way and just iron that way. And the next step is to fold this in half, and we're going to sew all the way down this edge. I'm going to make sure that my seams are matched up right here. And we'll do a 3/8 seam allowance. Make sure that your strap is out of the way of the seam. I'm gonna press the seam open just a little bit. And I'm trying not to iron creases into the other sides here. Just sticking the nose of the iron right into the seam. Now, you can fold this like that. This is like folding socks. It's getting there. So you want to have that seam right at the top. So you can see that my lining is slightly longer than the exterior, and I'm just going to trim that down so they're the same. Now up to this point, your whole water bottle sling is reversible, so you could choose to have this as your outside, but you have to decide now. Whatever way you decide, you're going to have your exterior on the inside of it. So now we're going to mark 4 equal spots around the circle just by folding it in half and then folding it in half again. And we're going to find the 4 spots in here as well. I'm going to count the seam as my first spot. Then I'll match that halfway point to the seam and mark the 2 sides. So we have 4 equal points. And this is basically going to be standing up on here and sewn together. We'll start by matching up the 4 points. So I can see that it's fitting quite well. I'm going to do a couple of clips into this bottom of the cylinder, not bigger than a 1/4 inch. And this is going to allow it to spread open around the circle like this. And we're ready to sew. It's best to sew something like this with the circle on the bottom, down on the table. This way I can keep an eye on the cylinder, which is what might get puckered up, but I'm not going to let it. And I'm going to stick with about a 3/8 seam allowance. I'm going to take it nice and slow and continually check to see that I have all the pieces in here. And I want to see the exterior to exterior right here. So you're going to stop often and adjust. Now I'm going to finish this with a zigzag stitch, which on my machine is a stitch 8. I'm just aiming for the edge so that the zigzag is going to catch the raw edge of the fabric. The main thing is that the zigzag doesn't touch the first stitch, the straight line that we already made. It's time to turn it right side out. Almost ready. I'm just going to do a top stitch around the top edge and sew a little X over each strap. You can feel where that extra piece of strap was inside, and that's going to keep it nice and secure so it doesn't get pulled out. Don't forget to go back to straight stitch. Fucking cute X, if you ask me.